You're watching The Legal Breakdown. Glenn, all eyes are on Donald Trump as his DOJ continues to engage with Ghislaine Maxwell. Obviously, the prospect of him offering her a pardon in exchange for some favorable story from her is top of mind right now. It's at the top of the news cycle. There is a concern that what Trump can get from Ghislaine Maxwell here is some public pronouncement of a few people, probably Democrats, who she can offer up as the Epstein client list. She can completely absolve Donald Trump of any wrongdoing. In exchange for that, she can get a pardon or some reduced sentence at the hands of the DOJ. And so my question here is, in the event she did conspire in some scheme with Donald Trump and Todd Blanche and the Department of Justice, in a subsequent administration, would that be grounds for any type of prosecution against both Maxwell and any administration officials who helped perpetuate this scheme, who helped perpetuate this conspiracy?
Yeah, Brian, the answer is almost certainly yes. If she conspired with others, that's a fancy way to just say if she entered into an agreement with one or more people to wrongfully frame, wrongfully implicate somebody in a crime they did not commit, that would constitute any number of crimes, including conspiracy to obstruct justice, obstruction of justice, and perhaps other crimes. But, there's a few things that we need to unpack. First of all, if the Epstein files incriminated a bunch of Democrats and exonerated Donald Trump, made it look like he committed no crimes, don't you think we would have seen the Epstein files released on day one of Trump's administration, or at least as soon as Pam Bondi was sworn in as Attorney General? So look, that dog won't hunt. Now, as you say, I fully expect Donald Trump's Department of Justice, Todd Blanche, and others to craft a story that Ghislaine Maxwell can tell, that Donald Trump is pure as the driven snow, never did anything wrong with Jeffrey Epstein or anybody else, as far as I know, but a whole bunch of Democrats did a whole bunch of horrific stuff with underage girls. Now, I don't think anybody could ever use Ghislaine Maxwell's story, her account, her testimony to convict anyone of anything, given that she's serving a 20-year prison term for the horrific crime she committed as part of Jeffrey Epstein's conspiracy to sex traffic young girls. I mean, she ruined, an untold number of lives courtesy of her crimes. Can you imagine putting her up before a jury and asking a jury to believe anything she said? She was also indicted for perjury, for lying for whom? Jeffrey Epstein. So there are any number of reasons to discount and discredit anything she says. But in the event she starts telling a bunch of lies, exonerating Trump and incriminating Democrats, in a future administration, she could almost certainly be prosecuted. Now, part of it depends on how it is Todd Blanche, the Department of Justice, extracts the information from Ghislaine Maxwell. Here's what I mean by that. There are a number of things they can promise her to get her to talk. They've already reportedly granted her immunity. That means when somebody gets immunity, whatever they say after receiving immunity, those statements can't be used against them unless they are exposed as liars. If they told a bunch of lies or they tell lies in the future, then basically the immunity agreement does not protect them. All bets are off. But immunity is one way to extract information from the Ghislaine Maxwells of the world. There's another way to do it, giving her some kind of a cooperation agreement, even a non-prosecution agreement that says, okay, you tell us a whole bunch of information. Prosecutors ordinarily require that it be truthful, but I can't imagine that's exactly what Todd Blanche, Pam Bondi, and Donald Trump are looking for in this instance. And then the prosecutors will promise to either reduce their sentence or give them some other kind of a benefit in conjunction with the case in which they're already convicted. That's another way you can bring somebody on board. But here's the thing, Brian. Every single agreement like that, either a cooperation agreement or a non-prosecution agreement, also comes with the standard clause that if you are caught telling any lies in the process, again, all bets are off. the agreement is null and void and you can be prosecuted in the future. Of course, there's a third way, and we've all been talking about it, to address Ghislaine Maxwell's criminal case. That's with a presidential pardon. That's the one that becomes tricky because a president, courtesy of the Supreme Court's ruling, has just carte blanche to, give away pardons for any reason, including what would otherwise be a criminal reason, like pay me $1 million and I'll deliver you a pardon. So it's very hard, probably impossible, to undo a presidential pardon if somebody is caught lying in the process by which they end up receiving that pardon. But again, they could still be prosecuted in the future because a pardon only applies to past crimes. So there's no way Donald Trump can say, I'm pardoning you of your past for your past crimes, and I'm basically giving you an open-ended pardon that gives you carte blanche to tell a whole bunch of lies, conspire, obstruct justice by falsely implicating Democrats. So I think any way you turn, if Ghislaine Maxwell tells a whole bunch of lies to exonerate Trump and implicate Democrats, a future administration, if they were inclined to do so, would probably have a solid basis to criminally investigate her, and if the evidence supported a prosecution, to prosecute her.
But normally in these non-prosecution agreements, you mentioned there is that clause that nullifies the agreement if you find out that the person that's being interviewed lied. In this case, if the DOJ wanted Ghislaine Maxwell to lie so that Donald Trump himself would be absolved, is there a way that they could give her a non-prosecution agreement that didn't include that clause, so that she could tell lies with impunity, even if we find out after the fact that indeed she did lie, and that non-prosecution agreement would still remain active?
Brian, you've earned your legal breakdown law degree, because even as I was talking about this a few minutes ago, I was thinking to myself, should I say that even though it is a standard clause in every cooperation agreement or non-prosecution agreement that I saw in 30 years as a federal prosecutor, it's not required to be in there. Right. I mean, a prosecutor could opt not to put that standard clause. What does that clause do? It protects the prosecution, it protects DOJ, it protects the American people whose business we are doing as federal prosecutors against somebody who might lie to prosecutors to exonerate Trump or implicate Democrats. So
right, but the difference is here that these people want that. They want her to lie in the event that it absolves Donald Trump. And so they have their interests are aligned here, and none of them are being done in good faith.
You're exactly right. So yes, in theory, the prosecutors could just leave out that protection that ordinarily prosecutors want in those kind of agreements to guard against witnesses from lying. They may very well want Ghislaine Maxwell to lie to try to protect Donald Trump or implicate Democrats. And here is the only thing I can think of that might defeat that kind of a bad faith cooperation or not.
Right, a corrupt bargain, basically.
Yeah. The one thing that might be able to protect against that in the future is a judge who has to litigate and rule on the enforceability.
Right, of a criminal conspiracy, basically.
Yes, the enforceability of a contract, a cooperation agreement or a non-pros agreement. Those are governed by contract law, in essence, that was struck in bad faith by a dirty Department of Justice. And a judge could say, listen, I am voiding it out, and I'm not going to permit Ghislaine Maxwell to hide behind a piece of paper that basically is trying to cover up a criminal conspiracy between she and Department of Justice Trump flunkies. So listen, there is always an attack that could be launched against that kind of a corrupt bargain. But I'll tell you, we are living in the legal upside down. We are in uncharted legal waters in so many ways. But once the rule of law comes back into the light, and I have to believe it will, or democracy may not survive, these are the kind of things that are going to have to be tackled, when we are on our cleanup mission to hold accountable Donald Trump and all of his co-conspirators for what they are actively doing to violate the law and to victimize the American people.
Glenn, I think it's worth asking here because, we often hear you say, I don't want to be Pollyanna about this. And I think in this instance, you're absolutely right in saying that when we get past this, if we get past this, we'll need to do some type of reckoning, some type of cleanup mission, some type of anti-corruption overhaul of the entire federal government. But we've seen the way that our justice system operates. We've seen the ways in which it can be abused by a bad faith litigant or a criminal defendant like Donald Trump. And so do you think, you've worked in this legal system for 30 years. Do you think this legal system has the stomach to actually hold these people to account? If we do know, for example, that the DOJ and Ghislaine Maxwell entered into some corrupt bargain to protect Donald Trump and gave her freedom for helping perpetuate this scheme. We've seen the ways in which Trump was able to walk because he was so abusive of the system, and the system fell victim to every single dilatory tactic he threw their way. Do you think that this legal system has what it takes to really hold these people to account?
I'm going to be brutally honest here, Brian, and say I've seen no indication of the American system of justice or the Department of Justice being up to the task of holding what I call the ruling class criminals accountable. When the Republicans are in control, certainly more recently, the Republican Party used to actually give a rat's ass about the rule of law and the Constitution. But in the age of Trump, they simply don't anymore. But even when the Democrats were in control, they suffer from this undue timidity and this paralysis analysis that left us, with Merrick Garland not taking the lead on attacking the crimes of Donald Trump. Donald Trump should be serving a sentence right now in the classified documents case because, frankly, those crimes were committed after he left the Oval Office, after he left the presidency. So they wouldn't be protected by presidential immunity in any event. But because Merrick Garland didn't move out quickly enough or with enough force or vigor or determination, there was undue timidity there. I haven't seen any indication that the American system, the Department of Justice, has an appetite to go hard after the ruling class criminals, recognizing they may lose in court. But Brian, my mantra in all of the years I was a prosecutor, and this is what I told my homicide prosecutors at the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia, there is no shame in bringing a really challenging but righteous case for, that you might lose. There's no shame in bringing and losing a case like that. But you know what? There is nothing but shame in declining to bring a really challenging, righteous case for fear of losing. Those are two very different things. And I wish I could say I have seen our DOJ have an appetite to go hard after the ruling class criminals, but I have seen no evidence of it.
Okay, so let's bring it up after that, and let's finish off with this. What about in the instance that a Democrat wins in 2028 and we have a DOJ led by somebody who is, the anti-Merrick Garland, who's actually willing to hold criminals accountable regardless of political party, who won't defer to preventing the optics of politicization, but rather just go forward and pursue justice without fear or favor. If Glenn Kirshner was the Attorney General, how could that change your perception of whether or not the legal system is up to the task?
Yeah, it can be done, it should be done, and it must be done, win, lose, or draw, if we are ever interested in breaking the cycle of lawlessness in presidential administrations. Brian, you can draw a straight line, I contend, from Richard Nixon not being held accountable for his crimes to Donald Trump feeling so emboldened that he sits in the Oval Office signing illegal and unconstitutional executive orders all day long. We have not been willing to try to break that cycle. We can, but I haven't seen an appetite for it. And I think if you put somebody who was appropriately aggressive in the leadership position at the Department of Justice, it can be done. And I contend it must be done if we care about the health and vitality of our democracy moving forward.
Glenn, you up for the job?
Absolutely. You wouldn't have to ask me twice, Brian. I would do it for free.
All right. Well, I know that you've got. I think every single person watching this video right now is rooting for exactly that. So we'll just keep that in our pocket for 2028 and beyond. With that said, for everybody watching, if you'd like to follow along with our legal analysis, please make sure to subscribe. The links to both of our channels are right here on the screen. It's the best way to support our work. It is completely free, and it's a great way to support independent media as well, especially as we've seen legacy media drop the ball and refuse to meet this moment with the urgency that it deserves, from ABC News capitulating to Trump to CBS capitulating to Trump and so many other outlets in between. So again, we'll put these links right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
And I'm Glenn Kirshner.
You're watching The Legal Breakdown.